Hey church, welcome to Proverbs on the Patio. Before we jump in, I want to update you on some crazy stuff that's been going on. If you have driven by the property, you have noticed that our outdoor tent is no longer up. We had a crazy storm come through on Thursday night, and it totally ripped our new event tent in half. As a matter of fact, there was another event rental company that had another tent on the other side of Portsmouth, and theirs was destroyed that night too. There are other event tents around around the Hampton Roads area that weren't affected, but the two in Portsmouth annihilated. Now, that's terrible. Like the very next morning, Kevin sent me a picture. I mean, I was just, what are we gonna do? I'm devastated. I have no idea what's next. Where do we go from here? But I'm so grateful for our team at church, our leaders, our staff. They jumped right on it. We weren't even aware, but it looks like insurance is going to cover at least a portion, if not the entire cost of replacing it. We've already got one ordered, so we are still on track to be under a new tent on September 13th. 2020, y'all. 2020, y'all. I don't know what to do anymore. It's one of those freak things that we actually knew there were some other storms a couple of weeks ago, and we had time to take it down, but this was something that wasn't on the weather radar and just annihilated it. So live and learn, and we're moving forward. So we're grateful for more options moving forward. So this weekend we are going to be online, and it's our last weekend. It's not our last weekend online, but it's our last weekend online only. Because starting September 13th, we're going to have the option of meeting in person under a tent at 9:30, as well as online on Sunday mornings. So no matter how you're ready to meet, maybe you're ready to meet outside under our tent, awesome. If you're still wanting to join us online, that's great. Those are going to be options for you, and we're excited about how our kids ministry is progressing, and our nursery and toddler teams are getting ready as well. We have so many great, amazing people in our church that are sacrificial, loving, and have a calling to not just make a difference, not just show up and serve, but man, to pour into the lives of your children and our toddlers, and we are so, so thankful for them. So the good news is this. Doesn't matter what happens, God's church is moving forward, and we've had a crazy couple of days. I kid you not, like our staff has been running around like trying to make sure. You might not know this, but most bars, restaurants, they're all buying tents. So every distributor we called for a tent, just the fabric, they're all out, man. It was difficult to get our hands on. So we're grateful, we're thankful, and God has provided. And just a short story, like I was listening to a message actually this past Monday, and the pastor that was talking, he said, a lot of times we get ready and we just do things. We buy stuff. We don't even pray. We don't even ask God to provide. We just take care of it ourselves, and we sometimes rob ourselves of blessing. And I remember thinking like, all right, well, Lord, give us a tent. Like, like I just threw it out there. And literally a few minutes later, Kevin comes walking in. He had been over at Fastenal talking with some of the employees over there. And one of them, their family used to be in the event rental business. And he's like, oh, we have tents. What do you need? And so they didn't have one big enough for our big spot, but like we're still in communication with them. They may have something that's going to be great for our kids ministry and other things in the future. And so, guys, don't ever think like, oh, we just need to fix this. Sometimes it's important for us to pray. And one of the things our staff has started doing is every Monday at 1 o'clock we begin with prayer. And it started by, we would pray for about 30 minutes, and then it turned into, we were there for an hour and a half on Monday, and all we did was talk about, things that are going on in our church that we're praying for and then trusting God for. And we walked away saying these are the areas of our ministry that we're just going to begin trusting God for. We've got plans, we've got schedules, Lord knows we've got data, but we need the Holy Spirit. So let me encourage you, no matter what you're dealing with right now, no matter what you feel overwhelmed by, maybe it's your kids going back to school, maybe it's the fact that your kids aren't going back to school, whatever it is, start with prayer. And so with that in mind, I'm going to jump into Proverbs chapter 12, and I'm going to share with you just 5 verses, 3 principles that could revolutionize your life, and 2 encouragements that could bless someone else's life. So we'll start with the 3 principles. Jump down to Proverbs chapter 12, starting in verse 9. And this is something that I think a lot of people miss. I'm not reading from an ESV this week, so it might be a little different wording. I think this is a CSV. CSB, sorry, Christian Standard Bible. Better to be disregarded, yet have a servant, than to act important, but have no food. Now, there's a lot of discussion on what this verse means. Some people think it means to actually be a servant. Like, not that you have a servant, but to be a servant to yourself. It's better to be that than to be somebody who thinks they're so important that they need to put on a show while they don't even have enough food to care for themselves. You dive deeper into this verse, and there's really some application here. What the writer's saying is he's saying, hey, it's better not to be known, but to be someone who not only cares for themselves, but maybe has, in this case, someone in their employ, an employee, a servant, someone that they don't just feed themselves, they're now feeding others. They have provided employment for someone, than to act important but have no food. Like, we all know it. We all can think of people who, as soon as they get money, they spend it, and it's all about showing off what they have, and it's about the extravagant lifestyle they're living. And this writer in Proverbs chapter 12 says, no, it's better to be disregarded. In this case, there's a disdain here. It's better to be looked down upon. And I'm just going to be honest with you. There are people who are going to look down on you for how you use your money when you don't spend it on flashy things, when you don't spoil yourself, when you don't go all out. And I just got to be real with you. The indication here in the scripture is those people, they're not worth impressing. Their opinion doesn't matter. My wife and I talk often about this type of principle right here, because here's the thing. It goes back to that age-old question. Maybe somebody asked you when you were a kid, would you rather be rich or famous, right? And all day long, I'd rather be rich than famous. I don't know if you've noticed, but if you're famous, everybody knows your business. If you're famous, everybody's got an opinion of it. If you're famous, you're at risk of being canceled. And in this case, the writer's saying, no, it's better to be looked down on, but to have a servant than to act important but have no food. Get your priorities straight. And this is one of those verses that, man, I could go all out on. I could talk for hours and hours about what it means to live a life that might be looked down on by others. And here's what I mean. You might drive a car that other people wouldn't drive. You might live in a house that, man, you could afford a nicer house. You might live a lifestyle below your means and other people think, man, they don't have it. Or in another way, I like to think of Hampton Roads in this way. I've had a lot of conversations with people who talk about blue collar and white collar. Well, here's the truth. In Hampton Roads specifically, a lot of my friends who work in the blue collar industries make a lot more than my friends who work in the white collar, because we're a very blue collar town. We've got shipyards. We've got places where you can work with your hands and make a lot of money. I know a lot of people who've made a lot of money in the industries as opposed to just selling things or working in the banking industry or the finance industry. And so don't ever look down on someone because you don't actually know what they're doing or what they're capable of doing or what they might be up to behind the scenes. And so here you've got two people, somebody who's spending all their money on flash, and actually in our economy, people like that actually helps our economy, right? But what is emphasized here is being someone who doesn't mind how people look at them, isn't always concerned with outspending everyone or what they own or what they can show off, but they have a longer term vision than just right now or what people think of them. Prioritize the right type of people and what they think of you, not the people who look down on you for what you wear, what you drive, how you live. That's principle number one. The second principle that could revolutionize your life is in verse 10, the very next verse. Totally different theme. The righteous cares about his animal's health, but even the merciful acts of the wicked are cruel. I think it's important for us to embrace the idea of mercy and understand what mercy is. Here we have two individuals, someone who is so merciful they even care about animals, right? I used to work at a church, and there was this guy named Dane. Dane passed away a few years ago. Love and miss him. He worked in the wildlife industries. He was a ranger. He would arrest people, man, if they did anything wrong when it comes to animals. If he saw somebody fishing and they were over their limit and he watched them put more fish in the cooler and they were getting written up, they might lose their boat. Like, he was serious. And I got to ride around with Dane. He was retired when I was an associate pastor, and we'd spend some time together. And he'd tell me, he's like, Mark, I love animals and I care about animals, and I think you can tell a lot about a person by the way that they treat animals. He said, if I found somebody who was just killing animals for no reason, and I had some questions about their character. I had some questions about them. And so in this verse, we see that here. The righteous cares not just about people, but even about his animal's health. Look, y'all know I'm a sucker, right? I don't know if y'all saw on Facebook. We had 2 baby squirrels fall out of our tree last week. It was actually the night of that big wind that tore the tent up. 2 baby squirrels fall. Yo, when I put my eyes on those things, there's no way I'm just going to leave them. So I'm looking online, how do we care for these? What do we do with them? I ended up taking them to the Cove in Suffolk, and they found some rehabilitation people who volunteered to rehab them because the mother wouldn't come back for them if the mother doesn't come back by nightfall. I'm not leaving them out there for the hawks. One of them died. There was 3 of them. One of them was already dead. Devastating, man. I care deeply. I don't want to see any suffering, right? But then in the next part of the verse, but even the merciful acts of the wicked are cruel. We all know people like this. They're not just cruel, they're mean. And they like hurting people, and they like hurting everybody, and they like watching people or watching things suffer. We are not, as Christians, called to be not only unmerciful, but in this case, cruel. We are called to be merciful and to care about, look, I deeply care about the things that I say. I don't avoid saying truth for hurting people's feelings, but I'm afraid too many Christians have decided it's their calling in life to hurt people's feelings for no reason, to offend, to simply disagree with someone so they can get into an argument. And guys, I see this all the time online. We are not called to be unmerciful. We are not called to win every argument. We're called to stand for truth. And certainly truth will offend, and absolutely truth will rub people the wrong way. But some of us have decided we don't even care about truth. We just want to rub people the wrong way. That is not merciful. That is not righteous. That does not honor Jesus. That certainly doesn't draw people to truth, to grace, to God. So principle number 2, let's embrace mercy in every area of our lives. The way that we talk, the way that we treat people, the way that we make people feel. I'm not going to make people feel good about sin. I'm not going to make people feel good about bad decisions, but I am going to go out of my way to show mercy when I can show mercy. Verse 11, third principle. The one who works his land, will have plenty of food, but whoever chases fantasies lacks sense. There's a really simple principle here. This guy has land. Go put it to work. But for some people, that's not enough. He says, but whoever chases fantasy. Some people who had land, some people who had resources, some people who had something in front of them to do, they're always dreaming about something else. You and I know people like this. Man, every 2 years they're changing their mind on what they are, who they are, what they do, what their identity is, what their calling is, what they are supposed to do with themselves. We don't need a new calling every 2 years. We need to work the land in front of us. And so what the verse says is, the one who works his land will have plenty of food. Guys, I don't know where you find yourself, but there's land in front of you. Work it, right? If it's the job you have now, if it's the job you're preparing for next, if it's the job 2 layers above you, work what's in front of you. Some of us never, years ago, I'm talking 20 years ago, I had a conversation with one of my mom's bosses, and he said, Mark, I'm going to tell you what's going to save you a lot of time. Don't change your mind every 2 years. He said, this was at a big auto dealership. He said, I got mechanics that they spend 2 years at this dealership, 3 years at this dealership, 5 years at this dealership, and they keep changing to chase $1 hour raise. He said, but then I got guys who've been here 10 years, and now they're a master mechanic. They're making multiple times what these other guys are making, or they've moved up and they're a sales manager. They're over people. He's like, if they would have just stayed with us, right, they would have moved up the chain. They'd be making more money, but they're always chasing a different idea. He said, or even worse, like 1 year they're a mechanic, the next year they're an architect, the next year they're an artist, the next year they're a writer. He's like, stay with something. And so I was like a teenager, and he's just like, whatever you do, stick with it. The idea is work your land and stay in your lane. Certainly, there are times for a career change. I'm not opposed to that. But some of us keep thinking the next best thing is going to change everything, and it's like, no, just work where you are. These 3 principles, rock solid. Now let me give you 2 encouragements. Move over to verse 18. There is one who speaks rashly like a piercing sword. His words cut, his words pierce, his words inflict pain. But the tongue of the wise brings healing. I think this is a repurpose of 2 weeks ago. Who are you healing with your words? Who are you encouraging with your words? Verse 25, second encouragement. Anxiety in a person's heart weighs it down, but a good word cheers it up. 2 principles, really 1 principle. Use your words to lift people up, to heal them of their past wounds. The most dangerous weapon I have in my possession is not a firearm. It's not a physical weapon. It's my mouth. I can offend, I can hurt, I can ruin someone's life with what I say to them in person, with what I say about them behind their back. Use your words to build up, to heal, and to lift up. Right now there are hurting people who need to be healed with your words. Use those words. Right now there are people who are down. There's so much anxiety with everything going on. They need the encouragement of you and me. Our church should be a people who use our greatest weapon for good, our mouths, to spread the gospel, to encourage, to lift up, to heal. So let's do just that. Guys, 3 great principles, 2 encouragements that really boil down to how you use your words. Use them to heal the hurting and lift up the anxious and discouraged. Guys, if we do these things, we will have people not only looking to us for encouragement, but we'll begin leading people to Jesus with our lifestyle, with our words, with our lives. And those three principles, they don't just apply to the Christian life. You do those things, you're going to be better off financially, emotionally, relationally. Oh, Lord, I didn't even think about relationally. Stick with your own land. Quit jumping from relationship to relationship. Like, work what you got. You know what I'm saying? Stick with it for the long haul. There's so much good preaching here. Y'all can tell I miss preaching. I look forward to being online with you this Sunday. And then I'll see you in person on the 13th. And that's our new thing, man. We're going to be outside. Cool weather. It's going to be great. I love you guys. I'm praying for you. Hey, if you have a prayer request, let us know in the description of this video. You can click the link. Thank you for those of you that have been partnering with us and giving financially. We've been able to not only support missions and support our mission and help feed hungry people in our community and see people continue to grow in their relationship with Jesus, but we've been able, right, to move forward in our plans for the future and what we're doing in our specific location in Portsmouth. What we've been able to have not only funds on hand for our programming and our resourcing our ministries, but we've been able to set aside money for the future of our church, the next generation of our church. So thank you, church, for all your giving, for all your generosity. You guys are awesome. I love you. I'll see you online this Sunday, and then on the 13th, we'll be under the tent together. You'll have a great night.